Utah has the greatest snow on earth, and it is not just a marketing campaign. There are several factors. One of the factors is that we get the most snow. If you look at a whole season, Utah gets the most snow. The other part of the reason is that we kind of fall in that perfect scenario of where our snow isn't too wet, like the West Coast, or it's not too dry. And so if you talk to skiers, you talk to snowboarders, if you have just constant wet snow that's slushy, that's not the best snow to ski in. If you're just in constant dry snow, you're gonna sink. So that heavy wet snow keeps your ski or your snowboard planed up, and then you have that drier snow that we all like to enjoy. And then if you do get that lake effect that kicks in, that is the driest snow on earth at about 5% water content. And that 5%, that is like the champagne powder that sits on your ski or your snowboard.
Hello, skiers and riders, and welcome to Last Chair, the Ski Utah podcast. I'm your host, Tom Kelly, and welcome back to our Last Chair studio here at the High West Whiskey Library outside of Park City. High West is Utah's first legal distillery since 1870. High West is passionate about crafting delicious and distinctive whiskeys and helping people appreciate whiskey. High West, the spirit of the American West. And welcome to episode sponsor Deer Valley Resort, which this year will more than double its terrain. I'll see you at Deer Valley East Village this season. With the season upon us, everyone's talking about the weather. So we thought we would bring back one of Utah's favorite meteorologists, Chase Thomason of KUTV in Salt Lake City. Chase grew up in the shadow of the Cottonwood Canyons, and he still loves making turns through the legendary Utah Powder. Today, he'll dive into the science of weather, share what's behind the greatest snow on earth, and take us inside a day in the life of a snowboarding meteorologist. Now let's welcome our guest, Chase Thomason, to Last Chair, the Ski Utah podcast, here in the High West Whiskey Library. My guest today, meteorologist Chase Thomason. Chase, thanks for joining us here in the Whiskey Library.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's beautiful. Mountains right behind you.
Are you like salivating that we have all these bottles on the wall?
I am. I'm very thirsty. So, I have my eyes on a couple bottles right now.
Okay. Well, we have our eye on a bottle of Midwinter Night's Dram, and that's going to be coming out later. So
that's my favorite.
Just hang in there for a little bit. So, we're right on the edge of the ski season. Things are opening up and snow is starting to fall. You pumped up?
Very excited. This is going to be, I think, a good year for us. I'm very optimistic about this upcoming ski year.
Now, I got to ask you first, you're a snowboarder.
I am.
You're wearing a Deer Valley hat.
I am.
And is that an ode to maybe you're making the switch?
We're making a slow transition, I think.
Slow transition.
It depends on the conditions and on the day. I think I'm always going to choose that snowboard first because that's what I grew up going down. But I'm slowly trying to ski a little bit more. I'm in this group of friends that really are big skiers. They're at Deer Valley. They're at Alta a lot. So I thought I want to be with them enjoying some of those runs. Yeah.
Wouldn't we? Wouldn't we all?
So last year was the kind of the beginning of the transition. So I bought skis for the first time just a few weeks ago. So we're tuning things up.
Now, was any of it inspired by your weather forecast live at Deer Valley on skis last year?
Yeah, I wanted to do something a little bit different. Normally, I go down on the mountain on a snowboard. I've done it at Park City, Brighton, Solitude, and, always trying to change things up. So last year in March, went down on skis at Deer Valley, and you don't want to look bad, so that's when I started to go down and do some practice runs and make sure I look okay while delivering the forecast, which is a lot harder, I feel like, on skis because you're also holding on to some poles, you're kind of dodging some bumps here and there, and then I'm also delivering the forecast for 3 minutes. Ran out of breath, but I think we did okay.
I'm just thinking about the possibilities. There's no green screen behind you there, right?
You have to memorize everything. So normally...
No teleprompter?
There's no teleprompter. There's no monitors. I've made my forecast. I've made those screens back at at the station. And so I'm trying to remember which slide is which. I'm not going to memorize 3 minutes worth of content, but I know if I have 8 slides, I have to memorize what slide is next. And then I have a producer back at the station changing the graphics. And then I also have a producer telling me how much time I have left in my ear. So there's a lot going on. And then you're trying not to follow as well. But as long as I can memorize those 8 or 9 graphics, talk about each one, and make it look smooth.
And can we get this video on YouTube?
Yeah, it's all on YouTube. It's on my Facebook, all on my social media as well. So I'm sure if you just kind of Google, live weather, you'll find it.
Got to check it out. Chase, you grew up here in Utah. Tell us about life growing up here and how you got into the sport.
Yeah, I grew up at basically the mouth of Little Cottonwood Canyon in the Sandy area. Was in a big family full of skiers. My sister, I would say, is probably responsible for why I now snowboard. Back in the 80s and 90s, everybody was skiing, and then there was that switch where skiing wasn't cool when you were a kid, and everybody was on a snowboard. I think my older sister was part of that. She made that switch first. She was part of the crew that would make snowboarding videos. She got local sponsorships, so she was big into the snowboarding scene. And I looked up to her and I'm like, wow, she is so cool. I want to ditch the skis. Because I did grow up, I guess, early on skis. But in 5th grade, I was like, I want to get on a snowboard. So 5th grade, Christmas, I remember I got an orange Burton snowboard for Christmas. And I went on the mountain and I think I fell 100 times. And I was like, I'm not snowboarding. And my parents were saying, no, we bought you a snowboard for Christmas. This is what you wanted. You're going to have to learn how to snowboard. So from that day on, it was snowboarding only until I guess last year when I kind of went back to skiing.
So your sister was a true influencer.
Big influence, like the original influencer on me. Before there was influencers, yes.
Oh, that's amazing. And you stuck with it.
Stuck with it, it's kind of been my passion every winter. Love finding the fresh tracks, hiking up, finding some powder. And then there was a moment where I left Utah to go to school. I worked in the Midwest. So there was a good stretch for about 10 years where it was only coming back on Christmas vacation where I got to go snowboarding.
Where were you in the Midwest?
Well, I went to school in the University of Oklahoma. So I had this dream of chasing tornadoes. Even though I love the mountains and I love the snow, I saw the movie Twister. And I think that was the moment where I wanted to become a meteorologist. And I thought that was the most insane thing ever would be to go chase a tornado. That's what I always wanted to do. And the National Weather Service is in Norman, Oklahoma. The University of Oklahoma is in Norman. Everything is kind of the weather hub there. And so that is where I decided to take my studies and pursue meteorology.
So when you went there to go to school, was that the plan already, or did you formulate that once you got to Oklahoma?
Oh, that was the plan from when I saw the movie Twister. They had a University of Oklahoma hat on. And I think all through middle school and high school, I wanted to be a meteorologist. I didn't know if I wanted to go the TV route or if I wanted to go into the National Weather Service or if I wanted to go get my PhD. That was kind of up in the air when I went to OU, but I knew I wanted to do weather at the University of Oklahoma.
So in your freshman year at OU in Oklahoma, did you go out in the spring and chase twisters?
Oh, yeah. That was what everybody did in the program. You would have, back then, we didn't have iPhones. We didn't have these radar apps where you could figure out where to go. We had to actually be at home or in our class looking at all the data on our laptop. We'd also have professors who, wrote our textbooks on storm chasing, and they knew everything about everything. So we would actually talk about where would be the best place to go storm chase in the state of Oklahoma. We would leave early. We'd go out to an area, and you would really learn based on visually seeing what's going on in the atmosphere. And that would really help out because the whole time you're studying, you're doing equations and you're doing math and you're doing science, but actually to see what is going on, not in a textbook, but actually in the sky, you learned a lot that way too. And it was just pretty cool to see.
Do you think that maybe we're too reliant on our mobile apps now and we don't just simply look up to the sky?
I think so. I think now, there's a big problem, at least in the Midwest, is that now everyone is a amateur storm chaser, because now you have all these apps and you can see where a storm is. Rather than learning what the science is, you can just follow the screen, follow the map, and then hopefully you'll see a tornado. But once you actually get to see a rear flanking downdraft, which is 80-mile-per-hour winds coming out of a storm on the backside, when you see a wall cloud lowering and you start to see the spin, you really get to see the awe of what is weather and what is Mother Nature.
Do you remember that very first twister you saw drop out of the Oklahoma sky?
Oh, it's something I'll never, ever, ever forget. It was May 13th back in 2011 in Hennessy, Oklahoma. And we were with some of my, schoolmates, and we were watching this storm for about 30 minutes. And all of a sudden they issued a tornado warning. The sirens were going off and it was so loud. We pulled over and we saw the little funnel cloud, and we were just remembering, come on, it was in an open field. Let's have it touch the ground. And it touched the ground only for about 60 seconds. But I just remember just being so excited. And it was all of our first tornadoes. So everyone in our car was just jumping up and just celebrating.
I know it's early iPhone at that point. Are you filming it somehow?
Yes, we were filming it on like a normal camera, like one of those Canon cameras that everybody had back in the day. So I do have video of it. I have wild, crazy hair. I'm wearing all my OU stuff. Just your classic college kid standing in front of this tornado.
Now, you're a kid from Utah. You're starting to think about, how can I translate these twisters into snow forecasting?
You know what? I wasn't thinking about that. Honestly, I thought my passion when I got to Oklahoma was severe weather and was tornadoes. I really wasn't thinking about coming back home to Utah. I met my wife in Oklahoma City. She's from that area. We kind of put down roots, and I wasn't really, honestly, planning on coming back to Utah. I was happy staying in Oklahoma.
You had to somewhere in the back of your mind been thinking powder,
Always.
though, right?
Yes. I always followed everything back home. So that's kind of how it kind of happened. I followed all the meteorologists. I had relationships with Dan Pope, Sterling Polson. I kind of kept in touch with them in case there was an opportunity. There's not a lot of meteorology jobs, TV meteorology jobs. So when one opens up, someone has to, someone retires, somebody goes to a different market. So at the time I was working in Oklahoma City. I was the weekend morning meteorologist. The chief meteorologist there had been there for 20, 30 years. The morning meteorologist had been there for 10, 20, 30 years, and nobody was leaving. There happened to be an opening at KUTV in Salt Lake City. I kept in touch with the news director, with Sterling Polson, and it was just going to be that right fit and the right opportunity where I could see me grow at that station. And personally, there was always a little itch saying, Utah is home. I would love to go back home to Utah. Let's give it a try.
Do you remember, I'm thinking back to my childhood, and this is going to take us back quite a ways, but the likes of Willard Scott and some of the great national TV meteorologists. Who are some of your maybe heroes that you would watch on television?
I would say Mark Eubank. I mean, he's your Utah guy that everybody used to watch. He'd wear that white coat, as a kid watching weather all the time. I thought that was so cool. I used to watch when I was a child, Dan Pope. I thought he was just so enthusiastic about weather. That really just kind of made me excited about it as well. And then the first person that pops to my mind that I still watch to today is Jim Cantori. And again, he's on the Weather Channel. He has that excitement. He has the enthusiasm. And I think you can really tell when someone is passionate about weather, it translates on the television, and then it inspires the next generation of meteorologists. To me, those were the people that kind of made me really passionate about it.
Back in October, I was in New York City for the 100 Days Out to Milano Cortina, and we were on the set of the Today Show. And there he was, Al Roker.
Oh, yeah.
And you just see Al Roker off to the side, and you're thinking, who is that guy? And then the camera gets on him, and he just turns it on.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's the best, right? By the way, me and Al Roker share the same birthday.
No.
So there you go. Yes. But
does he send you a card?
He should. No,
he should.
I try to tweet him and go, "Hey, happy birthday to us, Al Roker."
Yeah.
But he's got that passion as well. And have that moment where you can just turn it on and have that energy, and he knows what he's doing. He's the best.
Yeah. What's it like day in the life of a weatherman? You're the weatherman at KUTV.
Yep.
Meteorologist. What's your actual title?
I'm the evening meteorologist at KUTV.
Okay.
So I work the evening shift Monday through Friday.
What's your day? What's your day like?
My day is, I don't go into work until later in the afternoon, but I have always been obsessed with weather. And so the first thing that I do, probably like everyone, they check their phone. But I like to go and open up my laptop. I look at all the computer models in the morning. I kind of don't wait until I get to work. Because I want to know if there's a storm coming in. If a storm's coming in 8 days, what's the very latest? I get very excited when there's a storm coming in within the next 24 to 48 hours. I just slept hopefully 7 or 8 hours. There's new data that's coming in. So I like just to see what has changed, if it stayed the same, or are we looking better? We're going to see a bigger storm. So I kind of, drink my cup of coffee, look at the computer models in the morning. And this whole business has changed too, where it's just not only doing television. You have to be on all platforms. You have to be on social media. So I like to do at least one update on all my social medias about whatever that next weather maker is, get the public updated on what I'm looking at, and we kind of just start that process of getting the day started. Usually, though, after that, it's the morning. That's my time off because I work in the evenings. I have my dog. We'll go on a hike in the winter. Usually a couple times a week, I will go up for a few laps, either skiing or snowboarding. And
well,
then
you have to check the weather out, right?
Oh, you have to check the weather out, right? I need to know, when it comes to, at least if I'm going to go skiing, where's the best conditions? What resort am I going to go to? Which vehicle am I going to use? Because we have one that has better 4x4 and better tires, or, our other car that we use for long distance.
Wow. So I think, I often used to think that the people we see on TV, they just kind of come in and read their things. Right. But it's a whole science for you. I mean, you're the guy digging in and making this forecast.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some people that do that, but that's not why I got into this business. I didn't get into this business because I want to be on television. I got into at least meteorology because I have a huge passion for weather and a huge passion for meteorology. So to me, looking at those computer models and looking at the data and putting together the forecasts, I find joy in that. Maybe other people would say that's actual work. I actually love that. And I actually feel that it helps me become a better TV meteorologist because that is my forecast. And I am confident in what I am going to say to the public because I know what I'm talking about whenever there's a next storm coming our way, because I am just not relying on someone else's forecast. That is something that I put together myself. So when I actually get into work, I have an idea of what I want to say, what I want to do, what I want to talk about. But when I get into work, I'm putting together that forecast, and all those graphics that you see behind me are something that I made myself. So it takes a little time to make all those graphics that you see behind me, but then eventually once you get on there, and if it is your forecast, you should be confident in what you're going to relay to the public.
Do you have other meteorologists at the station you can collaborate with a bit?
Yes. We have a staff of 4 meteorologists, but we're kind of all staggered. We do have 2 meteorologists in the afternoon, so we do split our shows because we have a show. We have 3 stations at KUTV. We actually have KUTV, KJazz, and KMYU. So we have shows at 4, 4:30, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10 in the evening. So we do split those shows. So meteorologist Sean Kelly, he and I come in the afternoon. We kind of talk about what we're seeing. If I have a question on one thing, it's nice to be able to ask him and get his input, and then we kind of put that forecast together.
And how competitive is the business? Do you watch the other meteorologists on the other stations in town to kind of see what they're talking about?
Sometimes. I mean, we're on air. When we're on air, I can't see what the other meteorologists are doing, but sometimes in the morning, I'll flip around. I'll watch the noon show before I'm getting ready for work. You'll see what other meteorologists are posting on their social media. So you kind of get a sense of what they're doing as well. But it is competitive. TV is all about ratings and revenue. And so we're always trying to do our best so more eyes are watching us. We're also competing against apps and websites. There's just so much information out there for the consumer to consume, which has kind of changed the way I think I present the weather. I'm going to present the weather, I feel, differently than maybe another person at another station. You can pull up your phone right now and find out what the temperature is where you're at, So that has kind of made things a little bit different. I'm going to try to tell you something that you can't get on your phone. I'm not going to spend half my weathercast telling you what the current temperature is right now, because you can just open up your phone and do that. I'm going to tell you something that hopefully you can't find out on your phone. Then that's part of the reason when I get up in the morning, I do a little research, I'll find a little bit of a great stat that takes some time that you can't find. For example, this morning, it has been almost 240 days with no measurable snow in Salt Lake City. Well, I had to find out how many days in a row that is, and what's the record? Where do we fit? We're in the top 10 now with our longest stretch with no measurable snow in Salt Lake City. That's kind of hard for maybe the average person to go down that rabbit hole to find out a little piece of information. So then when I get into work, I'm going to make a graphic kind of showing where we rank when it comes to the least snowiest consecutive days. And then I'm always looking towards that next storm. Why am I going to spend time giving you current conditions when it's a nice sunny day? I'm always looking for that next storm, that next weather maker that's going to impact your life. So if that storm is in the next 24 to 48 hours, I'm going to dive deep into that, where I can pinpoint the timing of the rain or snow, the timing of how much snow we're going to get. Is the lake going to kick in? What's the snow ratios? Is it going to be a wet snow? Is it going to be a dry snow? But, if there's going to be a storm in 5, 6, 7 days, I can't get that detailed, but I'm still at least going to show you what I'm looking at. Well, if there's no snow for 10 days in the forecast, what are the long range things that are maybe signals to a pattern shift? I'm always going to look for that next thing, something that you can't really get on your phone.
So if I'm a skier or snowboarder and I'm visiting Utah, which we encourage all of you to do.
Yes, the best.
And you want to get the weather, KUTV Channel 2 is the place to go, because you've got the background, right?
I believe so, yes. I believe I got the background. I believe I got the passion. And I feel like there's not a lot of skiers and snowboarders that are meteorologists for some reason. And I think I'm one of the few. So if you have a passion for skiing and snowboarding, I'm also going to talk about that as well on the news.
Well, Chase, we appreciate all this. We're going to take a quick show break here on Last Chair. When we come back, we're going to talk to Chase Thomason, diving a little bit deep into the science of weather and also why do we have the greatest snow on Earth. We'll be right back on Last Chair. This winter, the eyes of the ski world will be on Deer Valley's East Village. Get this, 100 new ski runs, 10 new lifts, and more than doubling the terrain. It's a place you're going to want to ski. And there's new access to the much-loved mountain through a new portal on US Route 40, offering 1,200 new parking spots for guests with not a single stoplight from the Salt Lake City International Airport up to the resort. Deer Valley is continuing to deliver award-winning dining and 5-star guest service, hallmarks of the Deer Valley difference. And even with the growth in terrain, Deer Valley remains committed to limiting lift tickets, ensuring guests wide-open runs and an uncrowded experience. Visit deervalley.com to learn more, and don't forget, Icon Pass reservations are still required. I'll see you on the hill at Deer Valley East Village this winter. We're back in the Whiskey Library at High West. Our guest today, Chase Thomason, meteorologist from KUTV in Salt Lake City. Chase, I want to dive into the science a little bit. I know we could talk ad infinitum about this, but just kind of take us into a snowflake. What is it?
A snowflake is basically a crystallized version of what water vapor is. So there's water vapor in the atmosphere. If it's cold enough, it's going to freeze. Then eventually it gets heavy enough and it's going to fall and hit the ground.
It's as simple as that?
It's simple as that, yes.
And everyone's different?
Every single one is different, yes.
Wow. And one of the things that I'm starting to learn a lot more about is water content and how important that is for skiers. What do we look for in forecasts?
We look about how much water is in the atmosphere, how much juice is in a storm, and then when it comes to water content, really temperature has the biggest factor. If it's going to be a warmer storm, it's going to be a wetter snow, and if it's going to be a colder storm, it is going to be a dry, fluffier snow.
Lake effect.
Yes.
Is that fact or fable?
Oh, that's a fact.
It is a fact.
Oh,
Tell
it's
us
a big
about
fact.
it.
Lake effect is a very cool process. And I think that's part of the reason maybe why I got into meteorology as well. Because I remember back as a kid looking at radar and seeing a little snake coming off the Great Salt Lake. And that little snake was right on top of my house. And it just snowed for hours and hours. I'm like, that is so cool. That doesn't happen very often, at least out west. It happens in the Great Lakes because they're big lakes. But we also get that localized event here in Utah because the Great Salt Lake never freezes. It's so salty that you need at least a mild body of water. And when you get really cold air combined with a little bit of moisture moving over there, and it has to be the right scenario. It can't be too windy. It can't be light winds. It has to be that perfect wind about 15 to 20 knots, which is about 20 miles an hour. You get that cold air over the lake, you get that rising motion, and then you can get snow bands coming off the Great Salt Lake.
So it really works.
It really does work. However, a lot of folks think that lake effect is the big reason why we have the greatest snow on Earth. It is just a small percentage. It's only about 5% of our snowpack comes from lake effect snow.
You know, I lived and worked in northern Wisconsin for a while at a ski area, and we weren't so much impacted by lake effect, but those areas that were kind of just on the southern shore of Lake Superior, they would get pounded with snow, all lake effect. I always wondered if it was a thing here.
Oh, yeah.
So why do we have the greatest snow on Earth? Jim Steenberg and others have told us this is the greatest snow on Earth. It's on the license plate. So
Right.
What is it scientifically?
Utah has the greatest snow on Earth, and it is not just a marketing campaign. There are several factors. One of the factors is that we get the most snow. There are other ski resorts that might get a little bit more than Utah. There's Alyeska in Alaska, Mount Baker in Washington. But generally speaking, especially in the Cottonwood Canyons, we get the most snow. We get way more snow than Colorado, and we do get more snow than some of the resorts in California. Even though maybe California might have a couple days where they get way more than Utah, if you look at a whole season, Utah gets the most snow. So that's part of the reason is that we have the most snow. The other part of the reason is that we kind of fall in that perfect scenario of where our snow isn't too wet, like the West Coast, or it's not too dry, say Colorado. So you look at that snow water equivalent. On a typical winter storm here in Utah, those storms usually start off a little on the mild side. So we'll get a wetter snow, and then eventually as the colder air moves in, it gets drier and drier. And so if you talk to skiers, you talk to snowboarders, if you have just constant wet snow that's slushy, that's not the best snow to ski in. If you're just in constant dry snow, you're going to sink. So that heavy wet snow keeps your ski or your snowboard planed up, and then you have that drier snow that we all like to enjoy. And then if you do get that lake effect that kicks in, that is the driest snow on Earth at about 5% water content. And that 5%, that is like the champagne powder that sits on your ski or your snowboard.
What's the scientific reason why that lake effect is so light?
It is just that really, really cold air that moves over the Great Salt Lake. So the storm system usually is over by then, and that's when that drier air mass begins to move in. So as that storm has already pushed away, the whole atmosphere is just a little bit on that drier side. But when that lake does kick in just enough moisture, it's super, super cold content. And that is that really dry, fluffy powder that hits typically the Cottonwood Canyons.
You know, I've always wondered about the Great Salt Lake. The salt content is very high.
Yep.
Does that factor in at all?
It factors in because the lake is so salty, it never freezes. So if it wasn't salty, like Utah Lake, it freezes, and then that would lower how much lake effect you get. You need to have an unfrozen lake typically to get lake effect snow. So because it's so salty, it never freezes, and that way we can get lake effect. And typically our biggest lake effect events happen either early in the season or late in the season because that's when the lake is warmer.
This is something to watch now. We're now all going to be tracking this all season long.
Yes.
Let's go back a couple of years. The 22-23 ski season was just
all
epic,
time.
All caps.
Epic. Too much snow.
Too much snow. Tired of shoveling. What happened there, and how can we do it again?
Well, say more prayers. You know, we need Mother Nature to do it. But realistically, though, there's nothing that we can do to get another season like that. But if we do look at what happened, it is kind of interesting. It was a La Nina year, but it was a La Nina year that was transitioning into an Enso neutral or even a La Nina or an El Nino year. Right now, we're seeing a La Nina pattern. So basically what that means is that the Pacific Ocean waters are colder. And when we are in a La Nina year, not an El Nino, but La Nina, that typically yields higher precipitation to the north and lower precipitation to the south. Utah is kind of in that weird gray zone where La Nina and El Nino doesn't really have a huge impact on northern Utah. It does have a much bigger impact on southern Utah. So because we're in a La Nina year, typically that means that we'll probably have a lower snowpack down in southern Utah, which would be bad news for maybe resorts like Bryan Head. But for northern Utah resorts, it's really just a coin flip where each pattern doesn't have a big impact on us. But that year, 2022, 2023, was a La Nina year, and that's what we're in right now.
Yeah, it was. You were doing weather that
I was doing
year.
weather, yes.
What was that like in that year? Every day you're going in, and there's another 24 inches coming tonight.
It was wild covering that because it just would not stop. And that's probably what we'd like to see more to kind of forecast what's actually going to happen. We talk about these big world patterns and ocean temperature, but what happened with that year is that we had several atmospheric rivers that just kind of kept going, and they were like a hose spraying all this moisture over Utah day after day. And once you're in that pattern, it's easier to stay in an active pattern. It's really hard to make that switch where you've just kind of been in that drought or a dry pattern to try to get into an active pattern. So if it's going to be a good sign if December is a pretty wet month. The good news is that October was the wettest month on record for Salt Lake City. It wasn't for maybe some of the mountain areas, but it was a very wet year for the mountains. So the good news is that our soil is actually saturated. So if we want to actually look at potentially runoff from next year, it's going to run off into our reservoirs because October was so wet. But as we look towards the upcoming ski season, if we can stay in an active pattern, it is easier to stay in that pattern than it is to make that switch.
All of us as skiers, we look for every tool known to man. What's the effectiveness of the powder buoy?
Well, the powder buoy, in theory, it's accurate when it comes to, hey, there's a big wave, right? So that's what it's picking up on. Well, there's a storm. The problem is typically if there's a storm out in the Pacific where the powder buoy is, it should be here within 3 to 4 days on average. Well, sometimes when you see the powder buoy pop, it's forecasting a storm that's 10 to 14 days, and that's not accurate.
So as a meteorologist, when you're doing your thing in the morning and getting ready, are you looking at the powder buoy? I know you are.
I am not looking at the powder
You're not looking at powder buoy.
Yeah, I'm not looking at it.
Have some fun.
Oh, I mean, I look at it if I see it on social media, yeah, then it's fun. But I'm looking at the same thing that a powder buoy is looking at, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
What are some of the other tools that skiers can use?
When it comes to...
Just to kind of take a look at the forecast for the day. They can watch your news.
Yeah.
What are the other tools that they can use?
I am a fan of, whatever tools that you like. If you are a fan of using your weather apps, use that. But hopefully, I'm going to be, if you can't watch KUTV, I'm going to be all over my Facebook page and all over my Twitter. And that's where I really do like to break things down a little bit more because I only have a couple minutes on TV. So if there's going to be, forecasting, different types of a northwest flow, a southwest flow, and I'm going to dive into what's going to benefit a ski resort most, I would say follow me on Twitter, follow me on Facebook. That's where you can get a little bit more information. I do have, if you have questions on websites, Pivotal is a great website that I use. It's free. If you'd like to look at some of the data, some of the computer models when it comes to forecasting snow.
What's your Twitter handle?
My Twitter handle is my name, Chase Thomason.
Simple as that.
Simple as that.
You were lucky to get that.
I was the first to get it on Twitter. Wasn't lucky enough to get it on Instagram. And then on Facebook, it is just Chase Thomason WX for weather.
Okay, we'll put these in the show notes. You've talked a lot about the season ahead, but we're sitting here the first part of December right now. Anything else you want to talk about what's coming up this winter? Like how deep's the powder going to be in March or what?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of folks, get discouraged, I think, when there's not a lot of snow in December. December is not our snowiest months. We have to kind of remember that. December is that month where we just first start getting some smaller storms. The jet stream starts to get a little bit lower. We're starting to get that. It's a transition month. So don't get discouraged if it's not the snowiest December. That's actually pretty common. January, February, and did you know March is our snowiest month at our ski resorts here in northern Utah. So just give it some time. It's going to get good. Just might have to be a little bit patient.
Yeah. We're going to get to our fresh tracks section and wrap things up. We really appreciate all the science and knowledge you've put into this. But if you could kind of talk about what has been your life's passion of combining your love for skiing and snowboarding and meteorology, talk about what that has meant to you to be involved in this industry and involved in this sport.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate and very lucky. I think I've had a passion for weather and I've had a passion for skiing and snowboarding my entire life. And somehow I made a career out of that. And I feel like I'm part of a community as well. So I don't take it for granted. I'm very, very happy and very fortunate that I was able to find some sort of path where I get to do my hobby of being up in the mountains. And I mean, you're a skier, how great that feeling is every day. Then we get to do that in our own backyard. But also, as I'm riding that chairlift up, I get to watch, the clouds screaming at 100 miles an hour. And at least I get to feel like, oh, I've learned about that. I know the science behind that or why that's doing that. And then also, when I'm on the chairlift and people recognize you and then they have weather questions, I love the weather questions. People are really afraid to be like, I know you get this all the time, but that's what I do. That's what I love. So if you have those questions, keep answering them. I'll try to keep answering them and you keep asking me them. So I feel very fortunate that I get to do what I love and combine my hobby with my passion.
We don't get a lot of tornadoes out here, but do you miss tornado chasing?
I do. But you know what? It has really worked out being back home. And as we talked about skiing and snowboarding and that whole lifestyle, but I do have that passion for storm chasing and tornadoes. And, when we do get monsoon thunderstorms in Utah, we get some severe weather. We can get a little bit of hail. We can get some tornadoes. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it scratches the itch. If not, then during the springtime at KUTV, you'll see me getting my forecast ready. Then I'll have other TV stations from around the country that are doing tornado coverage. And I get to watch them and be a viewer rather than covering it.
Beautiful. Chase, thank you so much. We're going to move on now to our fresh tracks section. I've got a few final questions for you. And for those that do follow you on social media, they know that Francis rules the roost, right?
Yes.
So tell us about your bulldog, Francis, and what does Francis most like about you?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay, so I do have a almost 10-year-old French bulldog, so he's getting up there in age. I grew up with a big dog. My wife wanted a small dog, and we kind of settled on a bulldog because I think they were pretty cool. Francis likes to play in the snow. He likes to go hiking. He's not your average French bulldog. So I've really, put him on TV. I've put him on social media. He's gone viral a few times where ABC News, Fox News has picked up some of his videos of him playing in the snow with a big ball. So he's kind of got a little bit of a following. He's the coolest dog. He's the most loyal dog. You don't see a lot of Frenchies on hikes. He likes to explore. He's just literally the best dog. And he's my little sidekick. And, I like to take him to work, take him into the station. And, I like to say that he's my little weather assistant. What he likes most about me, probably that I feed him. He likes the food. He likes to hang out. He's my little shadow, I would say. So he doesn't like to be left alone. So, when I'm leaving the house, he gets upset. But right when I get home, he's happy to see me.
Our granddaughter has a pug, kind of
very
somewhat similar. And when the pug was younger, she used to take him up Grandeur Peak like once a week.
Wow.
I always thought that was kind of crazy, a pug going up Grandeur Peak. Does he have any big summits that we could talk about?
Big summits. I would say his biggest or his longest hike was Lower Calf Creek Falls in southern Utah. It was a 7-mile hike. And for a little guy with little legs, I think that was pretty good. We had to do a lot of stops, but that was the first one that comes to mind. We do a lot of stuff in Mill Creek Canyon. And so when he was younger, he is getting a little bit older now. We could go to some of those peaks. He could go about 4 or 5 miles. The thing is, I think if you get a dog that maybe is not a outdoor dog or a hiking dog, we started hiking with him from day one. So he doesn't know anything different. He was a puppy on the mountain, and he's now still an older gentleman, if you will, but slowing down, but still likes to explore.
Yeah, and Mill Creek is a canyon you actually can take dogs into.
Yes, that's the thing. Cottonwood Canyons, you can't take your dogs, but Mill Creek, on odd days, you can have an off-leash dog.
Cool. And who's more famous in the family? You, Francis, or your wife, Ashton?
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, I think my wife's, she's the most famous person to me.
That's all that counts.
That's really all that counts, right? I would say, though, Francis does get the most interactions when it comes to at least his social media. And when we're walking down the road, we get a lot of yells out the window for Francis.
Yeah. People come up and pet Francis probably more than they come up and pet you.
Yes, which is probably
that's a good thing.
A good thing.
Tell us about a weather forecast that you absolutely blew.
Let's see. I think, I would say it was probably the one from that 2022-2023 season. It was one of those where, and define on what did you miss, right? We're talking about, was the temperature wrong? Was the snow amounts wrong? It is easier, I think, to forecast snow totals in the mountains. What's the hardest to forecast is when we're talking about snow totals in the valleys, because you have that rain snow line. And I remember it was that New Year's storm that was a southwest flow, and we had so much water that was moving into the state. And I believe like Sundance Resort picked up 3-4 feet of snow. Then it also rained, and we didn't know if that snow line was going to be down towards the valley or along the benches. And we had so much water that we were forecasting, 6-12 inches of snow. And I remember Salt Lake just got rain the entire time. But then someone along the Salt Lake bench got 18 inches of snow. So that's the battle that we have to fight, where there's elevation and geographic, things that play such a pivotal role in snow forecasting, where every storm in Utah could be 0 to 18 inches. But how do we relate that to the public? Hey, this storm is going to bring, a half inch to Salt Lake City. But if you're in the upper avenues, you're going to get a foot of snow. If you're going to be at Sundance, you're going to get 2 inches of snow. And at Alta, you're going to get 30 inches of snow. We get those snowstorms sometimes. So, those are probably the ones that you kind of miss.
But that's the thrill of being a meteorologist, right?
And I like to be as open about what the scenarios are. Like, hey, this is what we're fighting. We don't know exactly where that snow line's going to be. We don't know exactly if that's going to stay a southwest flow for how long, when that colder air is going to be moving. Here are the scenarios where we could see someone could get a lot of snow and someone could get nothing.
Best concert of the summer.
Best concert of the summer was Rufus du Sol. It is electronic dance music. I went and saw their band twice. Went to Austin, and then they came to USANA, or America First Credit Union Amphitheater here in Salt Lake.
Best new restaurant in Salt Lake City you've tried lately?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say Urban Hill.
Love Urban Hill.
Yes. Not very new, but it's still just a new enough restaurant. We've been cooking more lately, though. We used to go out all the time. So I need to try some more restaurants.
We go back and forth. I love to cook. Yeah. And right now I'm into my sourdough phase. So I'm doing a lot of sourdough breads. But we love to go out. We recently went to River Horse on Main, our favorite in Park City.
Yep.
But Urban Hill is our favorite down in Salt Lake. It's actually the official home of the Ski Utah media event in the fall.
There you go.
Yeah, it's a great.
And their chef just beat Bobby Flay on Food Network.
There you go.
There you go.
You and Ashton travel a lot. In fact, following you on social media, I don't know how you are holding a job and going to all of these international destinations. But what's the favorite international destination you've visited?
We went to the French Riviera over the summer, and that was by far, I think, the best trip we've done. We are big foodies, and so we like French Italian food, it's all heavily influenced, and that's the place you want to go. We wanted to go somewhere warm, and that is a place that we just kind of went all in on the food and just ate everything.
Yeah. Follow Chase and you're going to get a great travel log. Do you have a best secret getaway that you would be willing to share anywhere?
Ooh, it is kind of a secret. We actually love the Green River Lakes in Wyoming. And there is a Forest Service cabin that is rented out. There's a lottery, but it's very affordable, and there's only one, and it's on this lake, and it has the best view. And it is, I think, our little secret spot where they don't have electricity. They have running water, but they turn it off in September. So depending on when you go, you're not roughing it, but there's definitely some elements where, you kind of have to bring your own stuff. But that is just the most peaceful, beautiful spot that we love to go to once a year.
As this podcast launches, recreation.gov is getting blown up by people trying to find that cabin.
Yeah.
Please don't. Okay, we'll take that out. Favorite powder run in Utah?
Favorite powder run in Utah? There's so many.
There's so many.
There's so many good ones.
Could be any.
The first one that just popped up to my mind was going up to Snowbird on any powder day and just going through the trees. There was this one run, and I'm really drawing a blank right now, up in Snow Basin that I hiked to. I can't remember the name, but I've had some great powder days there as well.
Last question. You have been a meteorologist, snowboarder, skier now. How do you sum up all of this in just one word? What does it mean to you? In one word.
In one word.
Just in one word, not two, just one word.
I would say passion is my one word.
You have a lot of it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Chase Thomason, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to close this out as we typically do. And the whiskey gods have shone down brightly on us today and gifted us for the set with a Midwinter Nights Dram. For those that don't know about Midwinter Nights Dram, this is essentially Rendezvous Rye that has been aged in red port barrels, oak barrels. So it has a really nice hit to it.
I've had it before, and it's one of my favorites. So very excited.
Yeah. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Chase,
for
being here. Thanks to everyone for joining us here on Last Chair. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks to Chase Thomason from KUTV for kicking off his season right here in the High West Whiskey Library. It's always fun to banter about weather, especially here in the home of the greatest snow on earth. You can find Last Chair on any major podcast platform. And if you like the podcast, share it with a friend and leave us a review. And make sure to subscribe to get every episode delivered directly to you. The Ski Utah Last Chair podcast is brought to you by High West Distillery, the spirit of the West. Follow our whiskey adventure on all social media platforms at Drink High West. And remember, sip responsibly. High West Whiskey, 46% alcohol by volume. High West Distillery in Park City, Utah. And a special thanks to our episode sponsor, Deer Valley Resort. I'll see you out on the hill at East Village this winter. To close us out, let's welcome back our friends Pixie and the Party Grass Boys. I'm Tom Kelly for Last Chair, presented by High West. Have fun. It is a great day to ski.
I reckon I'm gonna stay. Oh,